right, so there are expectations to the burden of proof rule. Some beliefs reflect self-evident truths, or they are properly based beliefs. And there are no square circles. For example, if a self-evidentially truth needs no defense, it means it's just what it is, right? Properly basic beliefs are those beliefs that are grounded in reasonable assumptions about reality.
Hard in this day and age when people are not in reality.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of what we went through the class. You have to make sure someone recognizes truth, because if they don't recognize truth, you have to build that one first.
Yeah.
You have to go through the law of non-contradiction and all those things to build a foundation. And if they won't accept it, then you're done. You know, I mean, unreasonable people cannot be reasoned with.
Well, even the Bible said so. Do not throw pearls into pigs.
There's no point.
There's no point. No, there's no point. So if it's not, and don't push things that they're not ready for. So you might have to go back, way back, before you can start giving things about the gospel.
You start with there's truth.
Yeah, start with
Well,
truth first.
His example is really good here. It's like, okay, an example is like, we are under no obligation to prove that we exist. Because if they don't believe we exist, okay.
I'm just your imagination.
Well, more importantly, how do you know that you don't exist? And you're talking to me. So if we don't both exist, then you have no reason to challenge that we exist.
That's true.
Their challenge actually refutes their concept. Or, you know, you have the reliability of your senses. Okay, it varies from person to person, but I can look across the room and see Walter, and I'm pretty sure he's sitting there. Your burden of proof is to prove that he's not, right? Because we all have eyes and we can see Walter sitting there.
Okay, this is crazy though. How people
don't have to go deal with this.
But you have to take them where they're at. You can't go to where you want to be. You have to take them where they're at, address whatever they're struggling with, and then walk them through the process, right? Because if truth is a problem, then we need to just focus there. We can't be going.
We can go any further if they don't have the
basis for truth.
Well, it might come back to what you said earlier. It's like when you get the deer in the headlights or that sound of silence approach, and they don't know what to say. They might say something like, "Well, you know that's true for me."
Yeah, they typically would throw something like that.
But the whole point is that's not true. Well, but truth is not relative, and you have to address that. So why do you think truth is relative? And you go through whatever example comes to your mind. And gravity is one of those. It's like, okay, you know, jump off the building or the ladder and see if you can defy gravity. If there's truth is relative, then you should be able to choose not to
believe in that.
Or, you know, I can what was it? The Avaventi said that you get burned and beat until you recognize that being burned and beat is not as good as not being burned and beat. You know, that's this law of non-contradiction. It's like you can't have it both ways, right? So unless given evidence to the contrary, the ways things appear to be are probably the way they actually are. And I think that is... This applies to the basic laws of logic. We need them to have any form of meaningful conversation. Basically, if they're not going to accept that there's logic and reason, then you definitely can't have a conversation, right?
Honestly, people that I've encountered different sorts of people. Majority of older people they agree that there's truth. They just don't say it because you don't want to be canceled, right? But they know there's truth. It's only the younger generation that are into this crap because they know. The older people know that, you know, there's a law of, I mean, none of them would spout things like these. It's only young people.
Like 1 + 1 is 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, the millennials.
No,
Yeah.
Those are the younger ones.
Try that in the bank. Try that in the bank.
The Gen X.
Yeah.
We know
No,
what's
we know there's true and there's false. We know that there's objective
Objective
stuff,
truth.
and then this, yeah. I've never experienced that older person would talk like, oh no, there's no truth. And, nah.
Unless they're crazy.
I've never met one. How's that? Only younger ones. Younger ones, I would
Scroll
say.
up one notch. So this is a interaction that he has in the book, and we're just going to read a little bit of it. This is what not to do, right? So if John says the president is so foolish for withholding funding from embryonic stem cell research, and James comes back, preferably, I guess James is the Christian in this case, isn't embryonic stem cell research immoral? You see, you've both now made claims, and now you're in an argument. Right off the bat, and you can see how it spirals out of control because now you're going back and forth.
Yeah, that's what happened to me with the
one makes assertion.
that it's like the abortion.
So skip to page 39 for a second. This is the alternative to that approach. 39, one more, right here. So same conversation, but you stepped it back a notch. So James says, sure, they're human beings. John says, no, they're not. They're just protoplasm. Okay, so fetus is human being. John says, no, it's just protoplasm.
And when I thought we were talking about the
It's a twist on the same conversation.
embryonic stem cell.
Yep. So this is the argument about why you think it's morally immoral. So James says, yes, you're right. They're every bit as human as you are. I don't know why he reversed the James and Johns. It's a little confusing. The first one, James, is the non-Christian. The second one, John, is the Christian. It's confusing. So instead of arguing, what do? So John says they're not human. James says they are human. I disagree. You and I are humans, but an embryo is different. Where do you go? So you've started wrong. How do you recover the conversation? Well, with a question, right?
Yeah.
What is the difference? Non-threatening. So what's the difference between an embryo and a human being? Most likely they'll go to the self-awareness next. It's like, well, an embryo is not self-aware. What's the next question? Or what make you come to that conclusion? And then they're going to have to spout something to defend that perspective. And there's no evidence, right? The evidence points the other direction. So you can get to the point where the awareness goes away, but they're still different because they can't live on their own. Now what would you do?
Well, what do you think of those
Those
babies that was born? They can't live by themselves, and nobody like.
A baby can't fend for itself after it's born.
So, do you think they're better than the embryo?
Yeah.
So, what's the difference between the baby that's born that can't fend for themselves and then the embryo?
Yeah, a newborn baby and an embryo pretty close in their
Well, yeah, it's just a different stage.
other than they
They're not completely developed yet.
disabilities. People with disabilities can't fend for themselves.
That's true.
So I think that's where you have to, but you have to put it in a question. It's like, well,
Yeah, non-threatening question.
newborn babies can't defend for themselves. Are they different than human beings?
Yeah.
And so the thing is, I think you want to walk it down question by question as non-threatening as possible. See, me, I would want to come back the other way. It's like,
I might form it in a question, but still antagonist.
yeah, I'm a little too sarcastic. I have to learn the non-sarcastic version of these questions because it'd be like, a baby can't fend for yourself, so can we kill babies? And it's like, oh, that probably.
This is a little bit off the subject, but the self-awareness thing. My youngest daughter had twins, a boy and a girl. And they were like head to head in the room, like they could see each other. And for an entire year, she died a few hours after she was born. They knew her kidneys weren't functioning and everything. But for an entire year, Easton carried a ball around, which I presumed reminded him of his sister. When he started crawling, he played holding a ball. He crawled holding a ball. He was aware that there was somebody in there with. I'm convinced of that because I saw it. It's like, wow. There was no other reason for that.
Well, you can see personalities in the womb. Our twins. I know exactly the behavior.
And the other one would just be bouncing all over the place.
One's a bouncer, that's Ayla, and the other one would be quiet, and every once in a while just get annoyed and just start beating on the other.
Opposite.
No, Ayla
was the bouncer.
No.
I used to bounce everywhere. When there was little space, it's more like Ayla just, and Viola just like,
Even now, she kicks.
But you can see the personalities even in the womb, right? All right, so scroll up to the ambassador skill, page 38. 38. What? Look, keep going up on this page. 38. 38. Where are you? All right, so sometimes the simplest, most effective question you can ask someone is a variation of the question, how do you know, right? And I like these because it kind of puts it in your mind, right? Why should I believe what you believe? It's a fair question. What makes you think that's the right way to see it? A little more challenging, but it's still non-threatening.
Yeah, typical for Bible interpretation question.
I remember that. So when we have a Bible study, I will
What makes
ask
you
the
think
question.
that's the right
So
way
what
to
makes
see
you
Good.
think that that's the right way
I'll
to
take
see
a
it?
picture. What makes you think? Why would I believe you?
And you should. You should.
Why should I believe what
I think the third one is even better.
I'm curious, what makes you think that's true?
I have questions now.
Yeah,
No, the third one I think is the best one. I need to learn to use this one because it's less.
I like number 2. What makes you think that's the right way to see it?
Yeah, see, coming from me, that might be a little threatening.
Why should I trust that your organization of your religion? What?
This is a
Why should
cult
I
question.
trust,
Why should I trust your organization or religious leader? You say that to a Mormon, Joseph Smith, or a Jehovah Witness about, the Watchtower. Why should I trust them? You can even say that about the Catholic Church, for that matter. Why should I trust your religious leader over other religious leaders?
Yeah.
Even within the Protestant
Yeah.
denominations, we tend to fall into this crap. And I think it's a good question, especially when they say, well, I heard this from XYZ. Well, why should I trust XYZ? It's a legitimate question to understand why the other person
It's more
trusts
credible.
that.
Yeah.
Well, no, but they have a reason why they trust that
Yeah,
person.
yeah.
You don't have that basis.
Yeah.
So the only way you can progress the conversation is to understand their basis for trusting that person. And then you have a foundation to move forward. You can use it for the cults, but you can use it in our own interaction because we've read something, we believe it, but I haven't read it. I don't believe it until I understand the basis for that belief, right?
Correct. That's true.
So when I tell you something, it's like you go, I don't believe you. I don't believe you.
I don't believe you.
Yes, I'm used to it. I've lived with that for my entire marriage. The first thing out of Judy's mouth is, I don't believe you. It's like,
It was like, I'm a
what?
mad person here. You don't believe me. No, I have to recalculate that. He's used to it. He's not mad anymore. It's like, okay, whatever. Do whatever you need to do to be convinced.
Page 39. Kind of. No, I need to speed things up. Sorry. These are fun. So going deeper, lower. So occasionally, in response to your request for reasons, a person will quip, "I guess I don't have any reasons. I just believe it." This is a remarkable admission that should
Yeah,
not
some
pass
people say
without
that.
you asking another question.
Yeah.
Why would you believe something you have no reason to think is true? I love this question
Yeah.
because they think they just got out of jail
Yeah.
because they say you Christians have blind faith. We don't.
I think the best way to get out of this, I'll think about it.
Oh gosh, that's a real. No, it's really good. But I like
Yeah, that's true.
I like what he's doing. Don't let them off the hook so easily.
Why would you
Just
believe
because.
something you have no reason to think it's true? Basta. In Filipino, it's basta. Just because.
No, so all right. Let's skip a little bit because we're running slow. I'm trying to figure out. Page 44. The ambassador skills. I like these ambassador skills because it kind of brings the concept home a little bit. This is narrating the debate. Many people you talk to will struggle when you turn the tables and ask them to provide evidence for their views. That's what we talked about earlier. But we're not trying to shut down the conversation. We're trying to encourage the conversation,
I
right?
understand. I've been on the other side of that, the one with the deer. It triggered me actually to look because, like, yeah, I hold this belief, but
I don't have no reason.
don't have a.
No, tell Connie your story. It's a good example of
Yeah, it's
this.
one example is the what did Jesus preach?
Push. There you go.
That question, like, what did Jesus preach? Was I mean, what is the gospel? The question of what is the gospel? My typical answer before is the death and resurrection of Christ. It's like, and then it's like, what is Jesus? What is the gospel that Jesus preached?
Hey, brother.
It had me think.
Well, and the questions like this are useful. I love questions like this because it makes me think deeper about something that maybe I've taken for granted and I have not formulated a full understanding of. So we need to be generous with the people we're having conversations with. Just because we get the upper hand doesn't mean we don't want to exploit it in a negative way,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
We're trying to help.
If you make it a goal that you want them to be
Yeah,
to the level that you're understanding, you gotta be patient.
you're encouraging
You're not there.
conversation.
They're not there.
Encouraging conversation for better understanding. So they'll try to change the subject or simply assert their views, sometimes because they haven't thought much about the issue you're discussing. Dodging your question may be their only recourse. It is critical you narrate the debate at this point. You take a moment to stop and describe to them what's going on in the conversation. This will help your friend or the others that are listening to see how they've gotten off course. So you can say, hold on. First, you made a fairly controversial statement, which I ask you to clarify and defend, which is what we've done with our first two questions. So far, you haven't done that. You've just taken off in another direction. Before we move on that new topic, let's finish the first one. So you don't let them off the hook. So don't let your friend get off the hook by dodging the issues. The tactical approach keeps the pressure on while keeping the conversation cordial. Encourage your friend to clarify themselves. This often is the first step toward changing their mind. So they want out of the conversation they started. You don't have to let them out so easily, and you shouldn't let them change the subject.
It's very very good at that. Yeah, they change the subject to completely get off the hook.
Or you bring up something that is completely unrelated.
Well, that's you're changing the subject.
Right. So the key is keep bringing it back, and this is the idea of narrating the debate. Keep coming back to the topic that you want to talk about, right? You don't let the other person dictate the topic, because then you may go everywhere. They started it.
They started an assertion, so you go back there.
So the idea is they've made a claim of some sort, and there's two questions that we've learned in the videos so far. One is, what do you mean by that? Or some variation. When they make a claim to you, burden of proof is on them to give evidence. When they explain what it is and why they, well, what it is that they mean by that, the next thing you come back is, what makes you think that, right? It's the burden of proof. Show me evidence. Don't just tell me a story. Show me evidence for the story. And that's the first two tactical approaches, is keep the burden of proof on the person that makes the claim, and don't make any claims. Make them narrow their assertion down to a specific topic, and now we'll have a conversation, because now we're focused. If it's too broad, you're not going anywhere. But you ask questions to understand how and why they've come to their conclusion, and now I can address the specifics, and that's kind of where we're at. Because our objective is to help them understand where we're coming from. But we have to understand where they're coming from first, right? If we just banter, then it's just banter.
Even bantering and things that they don't even believe to.
Well, that's the thing. You might actually give them evidence to support what they believe is a false. So don't give them evidence for their view. Let them give you the evidence for their view. Let's go to page 45. There's a reflect for a moment, I think is pretty good. He talked about the Aikido, this idea that you use the force of their arguments, but in the way that you want.
Get off the hot seat.
Right.
It's the, okay, you want to beat me up?
Yes. This is the Christian turn the other cheek approach.
No, this is not quite that. This is like when you really don't know how to support. You're disadvantaged. The person that you're talking to has more knowledge of the topic that you guys are talking about, and you're not.
Yeah, it's more like be the student and
So
learn.
it's like, okay, let me think about that. Tell me about it first. It seems like you know more. Tell me about it. I'll write it, and then I'll think about it.
Yeah, it's what Greg basically says. It's like you're basically giving them
The way.
well, not the win. It's like, go ahead and beat me up, and do it very slow and thoroughly so I can understand your perspective. That's the idea, is to give that perception of weakness effectively in a way that you can control the conversation. You can gather as much information as possible, and then stop the conversation. And go back to wherever you, and get research what they've told you, get informed, and now the next time you have a conversation with that person or somebody else that has that view, now you're ready. But I think we often think that we should never retreat, but retreat is sometimes the best thing to do if you're not informed.
Yeah, if you don't have the right tool, you gotta retreat.
Well, if I don't know, I can't actually,
How?
I can't even make an intelligent comment on it. That's,
And you're gonna look fooled.
well, it's like
make it up.
me going into medicine. When Judy's talking about the gadgets and medicine, and I mean, I'm like,
I'm a student.
let me write that down and Google that, because I have no idea what you're talking about. I can't defend it. I just don't know. And we all have, there's things that, we have blind spots we don't have full understanding of. So
Go to a gunfight with a knife.
exactly. Go get a gun and then come back for the fight.
That's right. Japanese?
It's a self-defense method where you use the force of the person and you shift the momentum. It's this idea that you don't have any aggressive It's a defensive. Yeah. So when they swing at you, you take the momentum of their body and you shift it. It's this.
Your advantage.
So yeah, it's a self-defense discipline that basically uses the other person's weight and momentum against them. Yeah.
The Japanese or Chinese?
Keto is
Aikido
Japanese.
sounds like Japanese.
It's a Japanese. I've seen it demonstrated. It's amazing because they'll take a half step and the person just falls down because they try to hit you. Yeah, and
Yeah, it's their
you just shift your body weight and let their momentum carry. There's a lot of flips and trips and that kind of thing in Aikido.